I have lived in the shadows, always observed, always measured, and always found lacking. They called my silence weakness, my restraint cowardice, as if the absence of noise was a confession. Every glance, every whispered judgment told me I was already defeated, before I even moved. And yet, here I am, still standing. Every moment they thought I slept, I was awake. Every moment they thought I yielded, I was learning. My quiet was not surrender. It was the weight of the world pressing against me, and I carried it alone. They never saw the storm behind my eyes, the fire coiled inside, the hunger for something they could never name. They thought the world had claimed me, that I was theirs to break. But the truth is far darker. The silence they mistook for peace, the stillness they mistook for fear, was preparing them for a reckoning they will never recover from. And when it comes, they will realize what they ignored, what they dismissed, and it will be too late. Betrayal. It does not announce itself with thunder. It creeps in, soft, deliberate, disguised as trust, and I welcomed it, foolishly, believing in loyalty, in friendship, in promises. One by one, they took what I offered and left me in pieces. I learned their patterns. I memorized their lies. I counted their absence as lessons. Each wound carved something new inside me. Not weakness, not despair, but precision. Betrayal became my teacher, harsh, uncompromising, forcing me to understand the world on its terms, rather than through illusions. I do not mourn the past. I do not curse the hands that struck me. I acknowledge them and use them. Each fracture became a blueprint, each betrayal a step toward power I had never known. And I realized, the more they tried to bend me, the more I grew, the more inevitable I became. Betrayal was never an injury. It was the first architect of the fortress I now inhabit. And inside, I am untouchable. I stopped responding. I stopped explaining. I stopped justifying. I learned to watch, to listen, to let them reveal themselves. Piece by piece, word by word, silence, my newfound ally, became sharper than any blade, heavier than any chain. In their arrogance, they believed the world required my defense, my voice, my reaction, and yet I withdrew, intentionally, patiently, allowing their words, their mistakes, their arrogance to build themselves into a trap. Every accusation, every insult, every challenge fell into a void, unanswered, unclaimed, unstoppable in its quiet devastation. I became still water, concealing a current too strong to imagine, a fire restrained only by choice, a power invisible until unleashed. They saw absence. I saw strategy. They saw weakness. I saw patience sharpened into perfection. And in that silence, I found my clarity. I stepped out of their noise, out of their chaos, and into control. I did not announce my transformation. I did not wait for applause. I did not seek approval. I rebuilt, quietly, deliberately, beyond their gaze, beyond their understanding. Every failure became a stone, every betrayal, a forge, every moment of doubt, a spark that hardened my resolve. I became the shadow they never prepared for, silent, patient, exacting. I honed my mind, trained my instincts, sharpened my presence until it cut through the unseen. And when I emerged, I was no longer one who reacted. I was one who commanded, alone. I learned the strength of solitude, the power of being unobserved, the advantage of knowing what others cannot see. The world believed it measured me, believed it understood me, believed it could manipulate me. But I had already moved beyond their reach, already grown into the weapon their ignorance had created. And now, they will feel the weight of a force they never imagined. One that moves unseen, unstoppable, inevitable. Silence is not absence. It is the weapon they never learned to fear. Each pause, each withheld answer, each refusal to react erodes confidence, corrodes certainty, poisons expectation. They do not know what I am planning, because I have made it impossible for them to predict. And yet, every micro-moment, every unspoken word is calculated, deliberate, deadly. Let them speculate. Let them panic. Let them fracture under the weight of the unknown. Repetition becomes terror. Absence becomes strategy. Silence becomes the language they cannot speak, cannot understand, cannot survive. I do not strike, not yet. I let them unravel on their own arrogance feeding my advantage. By the time they realize the danger, by the time they see the pattern, it will be beyond their ability to recover. Silence is my vengeance. Quiet, surgical, absolute. It leaves no fingerprints, no witness, no escape. And in that silence, they will discover the truth. They were never my equal, not in strength, not in foresight, not in will dot and then. It happens the moment they realize the world no longer makes sense. Their control slipping like sand through their fingers. They thought they had prepared. They thought they had measured. They thought they knew the rules. But the rules shifted. Unseen, unannounced, unstoppable. The ground beneath them fractures. Structures collapse. Alliances crumble. And they stand, bewildered, helpless, wondering how everything went so wrong. Every move they made, every assumption, every plan was anticipated, absorbed, turned against them by a presence they never noticed. I was there, always there, and yet nowhere. And in their fear, their disbelief, their unraveling, I find my satisfaction, not because I enjoy pain, but because the inevitability of this moment is perfection itself. They will never recover because they underestimated the quiet, the patient, the shadow that waits, the storm they never saw coming. And now, after the collapse, after the chaos, after the world has finally realized what it ignored, I stand, unmoved, unshaken, unashamed. I do not need recognition. I do not need applause. I do not need validation. Silence surrounds me, not as isolation, but as armor, impenetrable, untouchable. I have become what they feared, what they envied, what they could never understand. I exist, complete, unapologetic, beyond their judgment, beyond their influence, beyond their reach. My power requires no announcement, no declaration, no argument. It simply is, and in that, I am infinite. I am unbroken. I am unchallenged. I am the consequence they should have seen coming. And now, they will know it too late. Silence was never absence. Silence was preparation. Patience, inevitability. I do not chase. I do not react. I do not plead. I exist. And that existence is my dominion. Let them fear. Let them tremble. Let them fall. For the power they ignored has already risen. Every shadow, every pause, every calculated absence has built a force they cannot touch, a destiny they cannot alter, a vengeance they cannot escape. I am the storm behind the calm, the shadow behind the light, the weight that bends the world without a single word. And now, the world knows, irrevocably, that silence is louder than screams, that patience is sharper than blades, that the quiet is unstoppable. I am the reckoning they never prepared for, the truth they cannot deny, the power they cannot survive. And so I remain, unbroken, inevitable, eternal,